Hey, thank you, Todd Starnes. Informative, entertaining, and making you think. Bravo, good sir. Green Durham's nothing but truth. Happy Monday. Don't have a case of them. Let's start with actually what we started with this evening. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, joined us to talk about an advisor to the Pentagon. Okay, he's been named as an advisor to the Pentagon, Mickey Weinstein. And some of the statements he has made in the past, which are, well, what is sharing the gospel? This one is just, it's unbelievable, but it is sharing the gospel is a workplace violation, and he equates it with some terribly awful things. And I'm thinking to myself, when you think about this kind of person advising the Pentagon on their religious tolerance policy, you realize things have just gotten absolutely out of hand. And Floyd Lee Corkins, who was supposed to be sentenced today, if you think these things don't have an impact, Floyd Lee Corkins, the tape of him, the video of him coming in and shooting Leo Johnson as Leo Johnson stepped in front at the Family Research Council. He had over 100 rounds, and he had a bag of Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And this happened. It was a domestic terrorist event, and through Johnson's heroism, it was stopped, and nobody lost their life. Nonetheless, if you want to know where he learned about the Family Research Council, why don't we just ask him? The FBI did during their interrogation. Roll it.
Now, how did you, this building, this organization, how did you find it? Did you look it up online, or how did you know about it?
Southern Poverty Law lists anti-gay groups. I found them online.
Okay.
A little bit of research onto their website and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you have the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Tony just gave us a brief history on that. I encourage you to go back and check out that interview. But if you want to know what their overall end game is, it's to silence the opposition to natural marriage, to things that are traditional, to what they've deemed is wrong. Now, they do so with employing a strategy of having a pit bull, if you will. And Tony made this point. It was a great point. Having a pit bull like the Southern Poverty Law Center do their work for them in the sense of saying, okay, we're going to smear this organization. We are going to put it out there. So when people hear this, they will think of a hate group. They'll think KKK. What's the greatest antidote to this? The antidote is to this disease of smearing and character assassination is getting the word out and going before people and broadcasting, and you all continuing to get involved. Speak truth and love, be salt and light, and don't give up. Because what's happening now is we don't have a mainstream monopoly on the media. The mainstream media does not have a monopoly anymore. And the Gateway Pundit will be with us to bring us a little more information on a whole host of things, but they've lost their monopoly. So we do have our opportunity to get the story out. One of the ways we do it, AFR Talk, lock it in. Lock it in. Even when people disagree with us, they're going to listen. They're going to say, wait a second. People aren't a hate group. They actually are with 34 other states. They just don't traditional marriage. They're defending it, natural marriage. They're saying homosexuality is a sin. That's what Scripture says. So, while these things are awful, the important thing is to expose them, and it also expose the amount of hate one has, like Floyd Lee Corkins wanted to smear sandwiches on people's faces after they were shot dead. And this is conjuring awful responses from admittedly very sick people. Nonetheless, when you are doing this, you have a responsibility to explain how on earth you could come up with a characterization of the FRC and the AFA, American Family Association, as a hate group. You got to do that. And most journalists don't do their work. Good news is in American Family News, you don't have that problem. Those journalists do their work. Top of every hour, find out about it. So that is one story we wanted to hit on. Go back, check it out. Here is another story that we are very interested in telling you about, and that is the story of math. Norah O'Donnell talking about cuts in government, cuts in spending. Unfortunately, she doesn't understand basic math. Roll it.
The Congress acted quickly when some members of Congress were forced to wait a couple hours on a runway, as opposed to the pay cuts that men and women that are serving in the military, where they won't get a 3% raise, they'll get a 1% raise. We're in bases across this country that the coordinators that are hired to take care of families when their loved one goes overseas, that those jobs have been cut and those people have been furloughed.
But it's a 1% raise. It's not 3%, but it's a 1% raise. 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. But again, Norah O'Donnell on the left, when they're doing the math, you got to wonder. Moving forward and moving ahead, we go to Rick Santelli. See a little optimism here. Rick Santelli saying the economic discussion in this country is getting better. People are becoming more informed because they realize that we can no longer kick the can down the road. So people are understanding some of the things that are being said and some of the policies being enacted, and they are kind of in the weeds, but nonetheless, we need to discuss them because they are at the root of our problem, which is a government overstepping its constitutional bounds, making promises it can't keep, and providing services it has no business in administering because it can't do it functionally, shouldn't be doing it constitutionally, and is being terribly irresponsible with our money and our kids' money. Roll it.
How do we get America to work again? Well, I certainly don't believe that the Fed programs are doing a good job of that. But one thing is clear. They're going to try to make crystal clear exactly how drops in the unemployment rate like Friday's really don't portend that things are getting better. This used to be the fodder of many people that wanted to go into the weeds, but it's finally starting to reach the masses, and I think it's a good thing.
It is a good thing because what we are seeing is people who are dropping out of the workforce and recognizing that if we had the same amount of people in the workforce in 2009, we'd have 10+% unemployment. If we take what's happened with food stamps, we have a 70% increase since 2008. People on food stamps, 24% increase on those applying for disability. This is huge. Shifting into a government-provided program, dependency. And when you're on disability, you're not counted as unemployed. When you leave the workforce and you're not actively seeking, you're not counted. So these are things that we need to keep in mind as we're counting on unemployment. People are dropping out of the workforce. Where are they getting their money? They're finding ways through government programs. Does that make them wrong? Does that make them lazy? No. It tells you where this economy is going. And if you see 2 points something for growth, understand that that doesn't mean we are doing well. We are recovering. You got to look at the fundamentals. You got to look at business investment. You've got to look at the fact of what happens to the people when you add in the people that have dropped out of the workforce. How much unemployment? That's what you do. You have to look at the reality and not buy the bunny stew numbers that they're throwing out saying things are getting better. They've said this since 2009. It's not happening. Doesn't mean it can't. Doesn't mean you can't thrive in this economy. You're not on somebody else's economy. You're on God's economy. But the point is this. If they keep telling you things and say things are getting better and nothing's getting better and you don't analyze it, they're only going to get worse, and we are going to continue to get deeper into the hole. And we are. And we are going to have to face that, and our kids are going to have to face that. America is fundamentally being transformed. And it's going to a big government welfare state. We've got to consider that. Rick Santelli also spoke to Margaret Thatcher about the situation we were in 1979. Not only what Thatcher found herself in, but also where America found herself. And interestingly enough, what happened? We had 30-year boom. We confronted the very problems we had been running from. And on the flip side of this break, I'm going to bring you that clip because it's fantastic. And then we will talk with Jim Hoft of The Gateway Pundit. So, a little shot of optimism from Rick Santelli and then The Gateway Pundit himself, Jim Hoft. AFR Talk.